One of the key things we can learn from the whole scenario of Chris Eubank Sr. showing up for his son during the boxing fight he had with Conor Ben, who is the son of Nigel Ben. If you don't know about the backstory, Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Ben back in the 90s were phenomenal middleweight boxers, and I used to watch them as a kid growing up because my dad was a big boxing fan, and I got into boxing watching some of these fights with my dad. And but now they're a lot older, but they both have sons who are also boxers. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a fight between the two sons, just like their fathers fought back in the 90s. And but leading to the fight, the son of Chris Eubank, in one of the press conferences, I believe it was, where they were having a face-off, he slapped Conor Ben. So Chris Eubank Jr. during a face-off slapped Conor Ben with an egg, and basically put an egg on his face because Conor Ben had been caught with some performance enhancing drugs or whatever in his system. So he's failed drug tests in the past. So I guess that was kind of an egg in your face moment type of thing, is what Chris Eubank Jr. was trying to depict through that action. But when he did that, his father was really, really unhappy with him. The reason for that is because, his father expected better from him because of the principles that he had instilled in him as a child growing up. And he felt that Chris Eubank Jr., wasn't properly representing the Eubank name and family through that act of slapping Conor Ben with an egg on his face. While, on the one hand, yes, if, somebody's been caught trying to cheat in a sport or whatever, they should be called out for it. But I guess the method by which Chris Eubank Jr. went about it was what displeased his father. And through that, his father was really angry with him and had publicly said he wasn't going to show up for the fight to be in his son's corner. And, a lot of people, I guess, had been pleading and hoping he would have a change of heart. But up until the day of the fight, nobody actually knew whether he was going to show up or not. So it was a great surprise, and it was an awesome moment on the day of the fight. I watched the whole pay-per-view show, and I still get goosebumps when I watch that moment back when the car pulls up and they open the door, and it's Chris Eubank Sr. coming out, of the back of the car, and then you see Junior walk around the other side, and father and son in a powerful moment, walking into the arena together, ready to battle with the Bens. And it was just a really awesome, hair-raising sort of moment. I really got goosebumps from watching that. And, through that scenario, it reminded me of a proverb that we say back in Nigeria as a Yoruba people where I come from. I'll say it in my native tongue and then I'll interpret in English. It says, Tabafawo tumbomowi, katufawosi famora. And what that means is that if you discipline your child with your right hand, make sure you also use your left hand to bring them close and show them love. Because Chris Eubank Sr. had publicly, disciplined his son by letting him know that what you did was unacceptable. You misrepresented our family, you misrepresented the family name through that action. That's not the way we behave. Even when we disagree with what people have done, there's a way we go about it. And the way you went about it in this particular scenario isn't the way the Eubanks go about it. I've taught you better than that, son. I've raised you better than that, son. And I expect a higher standard, a higher way, a higher approach, so to speak, from you in the way you go about dealing with issues that you're unhappy with and people that you disagree with. And that was him publicly, using his right hand to discipline his son, letting him know that act was unacceptable. But on the other hand, by showing up for him on the day of the fight and being in his corner, that was him also using his left hand to bring him close. And there's something that we can learn from that as parents, as fathers, that, in this life, as you're raising your children, they are going to do things that you're going to be displeased with. No matter how well you raise them, no matter how much you instill good values and principles into them, as children, they are still going to miss the mark from time to time. You know, like they say again in my native tongue, in other words, when a child is eating some of our food sometime, they're going to make a big mess, right? As a child, as a kid, kids are going to make a mess. But, when they do make that mess, we need to be there as fathers to not only discipline and to correct the behavior, but also at the same time, having corrected the behavior and disciplined them, also bring them close and show them love to let them know that you're still loved despite your flaws, despite your mistakes, despite your shortcomings. Yes, I'm going to correct where the areas you've gone wrong, but that doesn't mean I stop loving you as a father. And it's important to have that balance. And that's one of the key things that we can learn from that scenario. And I hope, and I just wanted to share that through this video, that parenting isn't easy, and sometimes it doesn't come with a rule book, and sometimes some of us haven't always had the best examples, and we've gone into it just trying to figure things out and do the best that we can. But I felt that this was a really, really great lesson that we can learn from what happened, with Chris Eubank Snr and Chris Eubank Jr. in the lead up to the fight with Conor Ben. And you can see the extra level of motivation that gave Chris Eubank Jr. on the day of the fight. I mean, if you're a boxing fan and you watch that fight, for me, it's one of the best fights I've ever seen. And you can see the determination from both fighters, not just Chris Eubank Jr., but even from Conor Ben, because his father, Nigel Ben, was also in his corner. And you could see the determination and the extra motivation it gave both fighters, knowing that their dads were there watching, supporting them. And they were there representing the legacies of both families and the family name. Both guys hit each other with some serious shots, with some serious blows that probably against another fighter, they may have gone down in defeat and been knocked out. But I believe having their fathers in their corners gave them that extra sense of motivation to keep fighting and to keep going. And you know what? It's the same thing outside of the boxing ring, in everyday life, in our relationship with our fathers. When you know that your father's there for you and that your family is there for you, your parents are there for you, and they're supporting you and they're cheering you on through your battles in life, it just gives you that extra piece of motivation just to keep going, to scale those hurdles and to bring down those giants. There's something very powerful about having the backing of your father. There's something very powerful about just having the support of your parents in the things that you do, in the challenges that you face. Speak life into your kids as a father. Speak life into them. Tell them how much you love them. Tell your children how much you love them. And to the best of your ability, always try to be in their corner. Support their endeavors. If they're into some maybe sports or some kind of creative activity or music, or maybe they're into technology, or in whatever area of life they have an interest in, support them, be there for them. If they have a football practice or whatever, go and watch them. If they have a swimming competition, go and be there for them and support them. If they're into technology, buy them equipment. If they're into music, buy them instruments. Show them that you're their biggest fan, you're their biggest ally, that you're supportive of them, that you have their back. And showing up for them in that way is just going to give them that extra level of confidence and motivation, to be the best that they can possibly be, because you have their back and you're there for them. So I wanted to share that in this video. I'd like to hear in the comments, if you watched the fight, if you're a boxing fan, let me know how that moment made you feel, and also just share some thoughts on, the subject matter that I've covered in this video today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.